Hi and welcome to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today this is our basic embroidery stitches series that we've got going, and the reason we started doing this is because we are working on Down in the Garden. It has some hand embroidery in it and I thought it would be a great way to show you the different stitches that throughout the pattern. Alrighty, so let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to be looking at running stitch and also French knots. And you can see here that I've got some that look larger than others. So this top one is a double wrap one and this is a single wrap French knot. Both done exactly the same way, just you don't wrap as much. So we're going to get stuck straight into it, and we're going to start with the easiest one first. And that is a running stitch. Now you can have running stitch a little bit closer than what this one is, but just for demonstration purposes today I've spaced it out so you can get an idea of how close to get that. I generally have it a little bit of a smaller gap when I'm stitching away, and as I hand stitch in hand with my embroidery, I just rock the needle backwards and forwards to do a running stitch. Today we're going to do the stab, pull down and come back up method. Alright, so let's get started on that. Alright. So basically all you do is you take your needle up through the back of your piece of work that you're working on, and you just pull that through and then you go back down. Now I've just marked mine out so you can see how it is, and sashiko is done marked like this. You can get pre-printed stencils, and then you can just go along another stitch and you go back down again, and basically you continue all the way along, and that is how simple running stitch is. Now you can have your stitches varying in size. You can see here I'm just putting them a little bit closer than these ones up here. They're about a little under 1/4 of an inch in size, and that's generally the size I like to have, and I have that same amount of thread is the space between each one. So if I was to go and fill it in like a back stitch that we've got over here, I'm not sure if you can see that or not, over here, then you would actually end up with a straight line like that. So this is just very similar but called running stitch. And as I said, I usually do this one in hand because I can get that rocking motion. I do actually do a little bit of sashiko, so I suppose my running stitch motion is a little like that, and they use the rocking method as well. And I usually put like 3 or 4 stitches on at a time, and it makes it super easy and super quick. I really do like doing the running stitch. I use it mainly for like on petals and stuff like that, as it's used in the Down in the Garden flowers on the pattern that they've got. It's just yeah, they use it to sort of like a little bit of a decorative stitch really. Alright, so that is how you do running stitch. So as time goes on you'll get better at it, you won't be as wonky. I'm sort of trying to reach up to look over, so it's those stitches are a little bit much to be desired, but generally it's done in a straight line. I teach a lot of children to do running stitch to begin with when they start doing their hand embroidery, and I get them to do outlines and stuff like that in circles and all that sort of stuff. So give it a practice, draw some circles, draw some flowers, do a running stitch around the outside, and I promise within a short period of time you'll get really good at it, and it'll become one of your favorite stitches too. Okay, so now we're going to move on to French knots, and you can see here that I've got 2 rows. This style of embroidery is more for embellishment, so I tend to use it for the inside of flowers just to give it a little bit of texture, or I might use it for eyes on animals or birds or stuff like that. So I tend to do it as a little bit of an embellishment as opposed to an embroidery stitch that is a constant throughout the pattern. So these will only just get done every now and again. So with a French knot, as I said, it can be a little bit tricky, but today I'm going to show you the different techniques. So, well, there's only really one technique, and if once you master this, if you practice on something like a piece of calico before you do anything on your work, you will get a lot better at it. So you can see here that I've got 2 different sizes. One's a little bit more bigger than the other, and you can see over here I've got some some scribblings or chicken scratchings. One is a double wrap and one is a single wrap. Now, depending on what you're going for, how big the piece is that you're going to put these little French knots on, will depict what you're going to do. So for the first one, I'm going to show you how to do a double wrap. It's really easy to do. So if you follow these tips and tricks, you will end up with a nice little French knot. And as I said, it does take a little bit of practice, and it can sometimes do your head in a little bit, but I promise you, if you just follow these instructions, you will end up with a gorgeous little French knot. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you are going to come up through the back of your work. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your thread, and with your needle facing away from your work, you're going to wrap it twice. So this is a double wrap one. And then you're just going to hold a little bit of tension on this, and you're going to turn your needle and go in or just beside. Now, when they show you instructions, they generally say go back in where you came out of. I generally don't do that. I go just beside where I came out of, and I've had a much better success with that. When I do it the other way, I tend to, I don't know, it just seems to pull through. So you want to just keep a little bit of tension on that, not real tight tension, just enough for it to move. And when you get close enough to it, you can let that go, and you've created your French knot. Don't pull it too hard, because you will pull it back through. Now, unlike embroidery, which you can undo or unpick, these ones you won't be able to unpick. You will have to cut them out. So just be aware of that when you're doing it. So take your time. Again, come up through the back. Okay, your needle facing away from your work, and wrap it twice, and then go back down just beside where you came out, holding a little bit tension on that thread, and just let it slowly move and feed into itself. And you can see there you've got a nice little French knot. Again, coming up through the back, and I always just grab hold of this, and then with your needle away from your work, wrap twice, and then don't have too much tension on it, just go down beside where you came out, put a little bit of tension on that floss, and then slowly let it feed in. I'll show you again. Coming up, wrap it twice, and go down. I tend not to put any tension on that thread until I've got my needle going back down again. So I'll show you that again. I come up through the back. Once I've got to where I can't pull the thread anymore, I just hook my finger on and move that out of the way. My needle facing away from my work, I wrap it once and twice, and then I go down just beside it, and I just let the thread, don't know if you can see that, the thread just slide down the needle. And now is when I put the tension onto this thread here. I don't pull it real tight, just a little bit of tension just to hold it in place. And then I just pull it, and then I've got a French knot. And again, 1 and 2. Down beside. And pull that through. And you can see there's just cute little French knots. All right, one last time on the double wrap. Again, 1 and 2. And there you go. Okay, so now the next one we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same technique, only we're going to do a single wrap. And what I mean by a single wrap is that we're going to come up. Again, going to grab our floss, and we're just going to go around once and back down. And what this does is gives you a smaller French knot. So if you were working on very detailed work where you need like little tiny people, for instance, or a tiny little bird, and you needed to put an eye on there using a French knot, you're not going to want something of this size on a delicate little bird or a butterfly, for instance. You might be putting them at the end of their antennae or something along those lines. So this is where you can make them bigger or smaller. Okay, so these ones are the small ones and they're just a single wrap, and some patterns do call for it. Okay, so when it calls for it, this is a single wrap one, and we just go straight down. It's still exactly the same as a double one, except we're just going around our needle once and down. You can see there how easy it is, and they're so delicate. They're just tiny little ones. And as I said, I use these tiny little ones for when I'm working with delicate stuff. So I've got smaller images, you know, a tiny little bird or a tiny little butterfly. Sometimes if I've got a butterfly in an embroidery thing piece, I might just you know, put a couple on their wings just to give a little bit of texture to the wings and stuff like that. So they're all different techniques that you can use for just dressing up your embroidery a little bit. And on the last one, and you can see they're very neat. They're not wobbly. This one here I didn't put enough tension on, so it looks a lot bigger, and that's not what we're going for. We want them to have a nice, as uniformed as possible. And you can see my other ones are quite neat and tidy. All right, so that's it for today. So today I've shown you running stitch and French knots, a double wrap, which is our top line, which gives you a bigger French knot, and then a single wrap, which gives you a smaller French knot. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed this tutorial on French knots and running stitches. If you did like this video today, give it a thumbs up down below. Don't forget, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future crafty tutorials. And that's it from me today. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all again soon.